the son of 7 queens. Once upon a time, in a land of verdant fields and majestic mountains, there lived a king named Edward. The kingdom, vast and prosperous, was known for its rich farmlands, bustling trade routes, and crystal-clear lakes. The people of the kingdom were happy and content under the king's rule, for Edward was a fair and just leader. He was respected not only by his people, but by neighboring kingdoms, who often sought his counsel on matters of state and diplomacy. However, despite his prosperity and wisdom, there was one thing that deeply troubled the king. He had no heir. Edward had been married to 7 queens, each one noble, wise, and beautiful, yet none had borne him a son. The king longed for a son to inherit his kingdom, a child who would carry his legacy and rule after him. He feared that when his time came, the kingdom would fall into disarray without a rightful heir to the throne. Each of the 7 queens, though beloved by the king, grew increasingly anxious with time. They had tried everything in their power to provide their king with a son, but all their efforts were in vain. There were whispers in the kingdom that perhaps it was the king himself who was cursed. For years, the king consulted every healer, every mystic, and every wise sage in the land, but none could offer a solution. As his frustration grew, so did his heartache. One day, a mysterious traveler appeared at the royal palace. The man, dressed in tattered robes and a hood that obscured most of his face, was unlike any other that had ever come to the kingdom. He walked with an air of quiet authority, and the people of the palace sensed a strange energy surrounding him. The king, desperate for any answer, invited the traveler into the throne room. "Who are you?" King Edward asked, his voice full of weary hope. "And what brings you to my kingdom?" The man looked up, his piercing eyes gleaming with a strange wisdom. "I am Fallon, a mystic from the distant lands beyond the mountains," he said softly. "I have heard of your sorrow, and I believe I can help you." Edward, both intrigued and cautious, leaned forward. "Tell me what you know, mystic. My kingdom is filled with riches and joy, but my heart remains empty. I have no heir. Can you tell me if I will ever have a son?" Fallon's eyes narrowed, and he nodded slowly. "You will have a son, King Edward," he said, "but it will not be an easy path. The child will come, but his birth will be fraught with peril. He will be a beacon of light in your kingdom, but darkness will seek to destroy him. You must prepare for trials that will test not just your kingdom, but your very soul." The king was both relieved and troubled by the mystic's words. At last, the long-awaited prophecy of a son had been foretold, but with it came a warning of great danger. Fallon continued, "The child will be born to Queen Amara, the youngest of your queens. She is the one destined to bear your son. But know this, your enemies will stop at nothing to ensure he does not ascend to the throne. You must be vigilant." With a heavy heart, the king nodded. He immediately sent word to Queen Amara, the youngest and most beloved of his wives. Amara was gentle and kind, loved by the people for her wisdom and beauty, and Edward had always considered her the one who would bear his heir. When she learned of the prophecy, she was overjoyed, though her heart weighed heavily with the knowledge that great challenges lay ahead. Months passed, and the entire kingdom prepared for the arrival of the royal child. The people celebrated, and the palace was filled with excitement. The king spared no expense, ordering grand feasts and festivities in honor of the expected heir. However, as the time drew near, The atmosphere shifted. The other queens, each of whom had borne the king many daughters, began to grow increasingly jealous of Queen Amara. They feared that once the child was born, Amara would gain even more favor in the king's eyes, and they would lose their influence in the court. Their hearts hardened, and they began to plot against her, sowing seeds of discord and treachery within the royal household. Amara, blissfully unaware of the jealousy brewing around her, prepared for the birth of her son with a calm and loving heart. She received counsel from the mystic Falan, who had come to her in secret, warning her of the dangers that would follow. "Trust in your wisdom, Queen Amara," Falan had said. "Your strength will be tested in ways you cannot yet imagine, but you must protect your son with your life, for the forces that wish to harm him are already at work." And so, in the dead of night, amidst a raging storm, Queen Amara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The moment he cried, the entire kingdom seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. King Edward, tears of joy streaming down his face, held his son in his arms. "This is my son," he said proudly, "the heir to my throne." But the joy of the king and queen was short-lived. The other queens, driven by envy and fear, consulted with dark sorcerers, seeking to destroy the child before he could ever ascend to the throne. They made dark pacts, promising their loyalty to the sorcerers in exchange for the destruction of the heir. One night, under the cover of darkness, the sorcerer's magic was unleashed upon the infant prince. The palace trembled as dark shadows crept across the walls. The child's cries were drowned out by the malevolent energy swirling around him. But Queen Amara, who had been forewarned by Falan, knew what to do. She held the baby close to her chest and whispered an ancient incantation that had been passed down through the royal bloodline. The magic, powerful as it was, met the strength of Amara's heart, and the dark forces were pushed back. The shadows vanished, and the child was safe. But the king, who had been unaware of the sorcery, was horrified when he learned of the plot against his son. He called upon his guards to investigate the matter, and soon the treachery of the queens was revealed. The king was devastated. He could not believe that his own wives had sought to harm the child he had so longed for. He summoned all 7 queens to the throne room, and the truth came to light. The king's heart was torn between his love for the queens and the betrayal they had committed. They had plotted against his son, and now there was no turning back. In a fit of rage and sorrow, the king cast out the queens from the palace. They were banished from the kingdom, and their names were forgotten in history. The infant prince, now named Edmund, was declared the rightful heir, and his parents, the king and Queen Amara, vowed to protect him with their lives. As the years passed, Edmund grew into a strong and wise young prince. He learned the ways of leadership, diplomacy, and strategy from his father, King Edward. He was not just the son of a great king, but a child of destiny, his wisdom and courage growing with each passing day. The people of the kingdom adored him, for he was everything a king should be, wise, kind, and just. But the darkness that had once threatened Edmund's life had not been vanquished. The sorcerers, angered by the defeat they had suffered, sought new ways to undermine the young prince. They wove plots from the shadows, seeking to divide the kingdom and turn the people against the royal family. They whispered lies in the ears of the court, sowing seeds of distrust and discord. It was at this time that Edmund, now a young man, realized that the true test of his reign was about to begin. His strength and wisdom would be put to the ultimate test, for the dark forces that had once sought to destroy him were once again preparing to strike. With his father by his side, Edmund prepared for the challenges ahead. In the end, it was not through force that Edmund triumphed, but through wisdom, compassion, and the support of the people who had always believed in him. He faced the darkness head-on, confronting the sorcerers and exposing their evil deeds. The people rallied behind him, and together they drove the darkness from the kingdom once and for all. As King Edmund ascended to the throne, his reign marked the beginning of a golden age for the kingdom. His wisdom, strength, and compassion guided the people, and his name became legendary. His story, the tale of a prince born under the shadow of darkness, would be passed down through the ages as a reminder of the power of love, justice, and the strength to overcome even the most formidable challenges. And so the kingdom flourished, and King Edmund ruled with a heart full of compassion and a kingdom that had been tested by darkness but emerged stronger than ever. His legacy endured for generations, a testament to the power of hope and the triumph of light over darkness.